Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name's Stuart. I just got back from Objective by the Sea a couple days ago. I'm still super jet lagged, but had a great time. At the conference, myself and Alden Schmidt presented a talk called Blue Noroff's Clues, a Blues Clues themed technical talk on DPRK. And I got a lot of great feedback on it, saying people wanted to see how we made the slides. So I figured I'll walk through the slides, how we made them, and do my best to recreate them, and so you can see my whole process. I'm guessing that in reality, this probably took 4 times longer than it's going to be here, but we'll try it out and see how it goes. So what I'll do is I'll take you through a couple first steps of what I usually do before any presentation or talk, and hopefully get you set up for success. So to start, one of the things I use very often is in Play, the rehearse slideshow mode. All this does is instead of showing you this type of frame, it shows you this. So you can see what slide is coming next, what build is coming next, and we'll talk about all that. However, by default, there's not a shortcut for it. So I always go into my system settings, into keyboard. If I could spell keyboard right, off to a great start. And go into the shortcuts here, and then you can actually go by application, and I can set up a few shortcuts that make my life easier. So I have a shortcut set up to rehearse a slideshow, and we'll be using that a ton. Lastly, as I build out a presentation, I create a folder for all the assets I use. So in this case, there's this folder. This is all things like screenshots that I might want to use, different background colors, and images. So we use all these, most of them screenshots, some GPT created, some AI in here too. But we'll talk about all that as we get going. So I'm going to actually leave this window here. So what we're going to do is we'll watch the first few slides here along the left side. And you can actually see I like to nest a lot of my slides. So we have the agenda, the different sections, and things like that. But what we'll do is we'll watch the first couple, and then we'll switch to kind of a blank template and try to recreate it as best as we can. So how we started with a title slide, just a still image. And then once we are ready to start introducing, we had this video. Now I won't recreate this video because I did it in Final Cut, but what we'll talk through is this whole section here. So the intro, introducing ourselves, the agenda piece, which is with this handy dandy notebook from the Blues Clues shows. Each of these are separate builds. And then we'll talk about this transition here because I think this is what people seem to like the most. And we'll see what we have time for. I have a daughter who's running around upstairs, and as I said, I'm jet lagged. So we'll see how many of this we get through in this first go round, and we'll keep going from there. And I hope to make this a series, not just with this presentation, but others as well. All right, so with that in mind, let's switch over to our blank one. Now this is going to be called Keynope to Keydope as we talk through a Keynote tutorial here. So one of the things I like to do right away is update some of my text here. So Alden and I use this Arial rounded empty bold, and if you want to make it the default for your slide deck, you can actually choose it and hit update here. So anytime you use that type of heading in the future, as my cat tries to break in my office, you can actually, it'll automatically pick this font. It's kind of handy. So one of the things I use a lot is the duplicate function. So Command D to duplicate a second slide, and now let's get going. So luckily we have our kind of our logo video here. So let's just drop that in first. This is all pre-made, so this should be relatively easy. Another thing that we use a lot is kind of maximizing the screen real estate. So if you zoom out here, you can see this window here is everything that's going to be seen when you are projecting your slide. However, you can actually go outside of these bounds, and that allows a lot of neat stuff and the ability to move. So we have our opening slide, and next up, let's look here. We're going to have our introductory slide, which is this zoom into the computer. So there's a few components here. First, we have a background image. Now, I use this background image a lot. So this is the dark blue. So all I do here, I put it here, aim it to the corner, and you can actually, in the arrange function, tell it not to constrain proportions. So that means you can stretch it differently. So we have that, and because I don't want it to move anytime I move something else, I'm going to lock it into place. So I hit this lock button, that's going to keep it there. Now, this object list is really handy. This is usually ordered from back to front. So if I move this tile up to the top, we're going to actually see it on the screen because it's now in the front. So all these backgrounds, I keep at the back. However, because it's locked, it's not going to do it now. All right, so we have our background image. Now, let's remove all the extra stuff here. Let's get our computer image. Apple computer. All right. So we want to zoom in here. We're going to remove these constrained proportions, make it a little wider. Looks like a widescreen. Now, the thing is, when we zoom in, we want it to scale right. So what I like to do, and what Keynote does a good job of, is removing content. So if I hit Edit Mask, or let's just do Remove Background. So that's going to remove the background around it. I want to keep that part, so I'm going to reset. But you can see here, this square in the middle, this allows me to pick and choose what colors I want it to remove. So if I click down and drag up, you can see it's actually grabbing all that color inside this computer screen, quote unquote. And then when I let go, it's going to preview what it looks like completely removed. So if I hit done, now I can actually see that this is keeping in line with my background color. So great. Okay, so we have this kind of first screen where we're going to show our presenter names. Actually, it looks like in this one I didn't even... oh yeah, I did. Just a different color. We'll keep the dark blue for this one. All right, so we're going to duplicate. This is one of the things that I think Apple does best at. So first, we want to zoom in on the screen. So as I said, this section here in the middle is what gets projected. So if I now do constrained proportions, so I don't blow this out on accident, I can stretch this, and you can see the grayed out part on the outside. So that's not going to be seen. But if I keep stretching it, and I zoom back a little more, now what's in that light area in the middle is what's going to be seen on the screen. So I do this a lot. So I'll arrange it, and then I'll rehearse the slideshow. So I'll go back one slide, hit it, and that's what it's going to look like to the presenter. Okay, that's great, but that is a very choppy transition. So let's go back to slide 2 and add a transition here. So let's add a magic move with a nice slow zoom, and I think that is about perfect. All right, so we'll give our intro to the talk, and then we'll say, let's introduce ourselves. However, I will be clicking a lot if this is the case. So instead of actually having to click, I'm just going to do it automatically, make it happen quite quickly. So that way, once I'm done with this video, let's go ahead and start it. I'll go to the next slide. I don't have to touch it. It automatically zooms in. And now we can enter our info. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's add some text here. Let's just do insert text box. Add it over here. Go to format. Make our text white so it's readable. And let's change the font to the one we're using across all slides. Go ahead and make it a little larger. I'm not going to do all of this, but I'm going to do pieces of it. So I'll do myself. Duplicate it. Add my co-presenter. So now we have our two names. We'll space them out a little more. You can also click both by holding Command or clicking them over here, and you can align them. So align them left. That'll make sure that they're lined up in a straight line. And instead of actually adding our headshots again, let's see here. Go to my other slide deck. Lose it. Close. I'm just going to grab this Blue's Clues ones because I think these are two assets that I didn't finish sharing. So all I did in this case, so we have the actual image here. If I go to image, I can show you the raw image. It's actually a square. So let's actually, we can go to format, image, reset mask. So this shows you what it looked like when we got it on the machine. Format, image, mask with shape. We can just make a circle. And this is kind of how we make these circles. So I get it pretty close to the size I want it to be. And then I'll go in here and I'll make sure that it's the same height and width. So it's a circle, and then hit done. And it gives you that nice circle. Now, one thing I like to do with most of my images to give it a little depth is a shadow. Most of the ones from this presentation were a 5 blur, 5 offset, and 65 opacity. In some instances, I set this up to 10. It's a subtle difference, but it gives it a little more depth of field there. So we have this, even though these are inverted. I was Steve and Alden was blue. Okay. So right now, if we zoom in and we rehearse this again, you'll see that once this transition is complete, it just kind of throws those into our view. So what we can do is we can select all these. We can animate them. I guess this automatically gave us a few when we copied it over. Another thing I use a lot other than this object list is this build order. So let's go ahead and build it in. We'll have it blur. It's a little slow, so let's make it quite a bit faster, maybe half a second. And instead of having each of them come in separately on a click, let's make mine come in at once, and then Alden's come in at once, and then I can introduce myself, and then when I am finished, he can introduce himself, and we can click into the revealing of his name and his character in this case. Now in this build order, you can either do it after or in tandem. So instead of doing my image, then my name, I can do them at the same time. So I'll click on my name here, do it with build one, and I'm going to have this automatically after the transition. And then to show you how it looks different, we will do Alden's after. So mine is with build, his will be after build. So you'll see how it'll come in differently. So let's go ahead and rehearse, and we'll see how this looks. We'll get our zoom. The transition is done, and there come mine at the same time. And this is what Alden's would look like, one after another. So the image first, then his name. One of the nice things about this rehearse mode is that green line at the top shows you when we're in a kind of a stale state. So nothing needs to be built on this slide at the moment. I can talk over it. If it's red, that means something is building or we're in a transitional phase. Okay, so we have zoomed in on the computer. Now we want to zoom back, though, and then transition to the next slide, if I remember correctly. Oh, no, we did the agenda on this slide. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and do that. So all I'm going to do here, I'm going to duplicate it. So I'm in the exact same frame. I'm going to remove all that. And now let's put in our notebook. So I have it in here, I believe. I hope I do. Notebook. Not that one. You can see kind of the different iterations I've done here. If not, we can just copy over the raw notebook from the other one. You can see how well I thought all this out before we got started. Okay, let's go ahead and just grab the notebook from the other one because it won't do a whole lot for you. So let's copy it over and go ahead and drop it in here. So you can see this is actually what it looked like. It definitely didn't look like that. So we have this chair in the middle. We don't want to just make it opaque or else we'll have the blue background. So this is one of the hacks I have learned over time. So first, let's go ahead and find a way to cover that chair in the middle of the notebook. So we're going to insert a shape, a rectangle, here and cover it up. And that looks silly. So one of the things I use often is the digital color meter. This comes pre-installed with Mac. And it's super handy, although it's a little clunky to do it this way. So I'm going to look at the red, green, and blue values here. And then I'm going to color the rectangle those colors. So we have 381, 827, and 380. Let's go to color. Let's do 381. This was, I know, 380. And now I have to remember what this one was. Go back to our color meter. 827. Great. Now it's green. One of the things I do often is I'll kind of zoom in and see how well it lines up and kind of rearrange the edges of the box to cover it up enough, but hopefully to make it blend. I think on the other slide deck, I went a little in depth here to actually make this blend as much as I could. Let's see. I even added like a secondary rectangle here at the top that was slightly lighter colored because I believe the gradient of that notebook changes a little. But we'll kind of leave it like this because this works. All right, back to this one. So in this case, let's go ahead and add our text here. Now you can do this, you can add text in two ways. You can either add it directly into the shape itself, or you can add it as a second text box. And I haven't figured out the exact nuance here. I think we can go ahead and add this one just like this as this label and type background on blue Noroff. Let's go ahead and make that a lot bigger. We'll settle here. Great. And we'll see if I can now. Oh, one of the problems with this is you can't scale the text very well. So with a text box, you can actually make the aperture bigger or smaller, and it'll actually shrink the text in according to how you want it to look. But this will work just fine. So we have our first one. And now let's go ahead and animate it. I believe we did a drop animation. Nope, that's not right. None. We don't want to build it in. So building in is how it appears on the screen. We actually want to make this disappear from the screen. So let's say build out. And I'm just going to peek at the other slide deck here and see what kind of animation it was to save a little time here. So I actually did these in groups. You can see the rectangle pivot. Okay. Often I'll actually sit and sort through these. So pivot, okay, that disappears to the top. Let's go the other way. We can preview it here. That works. Okay, so we have our first one done. So now we need to do the other one. So I'm going to duplicate that one, try to make it in the exact same spot, and it gives you these little yellow guidelines to help you see that if you're square or not. And I'll add here, let's call it technical analysis. Luckily, because we duplicated it, the animation's already the same. However, we can see here that every time we do this, we're seeing that that chair again. So what we're going to do, we'll duplicate one more, remove the text, and we'll come down here and we'll actually group these two together. We're going to group those. So now, if we go ahead and preview what this slide will look like, let's go build order. We need to make this one on the front because this is going to be coming first. So we'll have our background, technical analysis, and when this one fades, we see that the green shape is covering up the chair. All right, so I'm going to rearrange these. It's a little easier to follow. So next we had detection ops. And lastly, we had what's new. You can see I use the duplicate function all the time, and it makes it go a lot quicker. And so we have all these pivots now, and we'll rearrange them so they're in the order in which we want them to appear. So we'll have background first, technical analysis, detection ops, and then what's new. Let's watch it again. Background on blue Noroff, technical analysis, detection opportunities, and what's new. Now, if I wanted to, I could chain all those together to happen one after another after another. However, because in a speech, especially co-presenting, you never know how much detail the other person might go into. So it's easier to kind of go this way, especially if I'm not the one presenting this slide. Okay, let's also add a text box here, up in the top corner. This is going to say agenda. And remember that all we're going to see is what's inside this box here. All right, so we'll have agenda, and we'll talk through all these. Okay, great. You can see I jump back and forth a ton. So next we want to do this first transition. So this is what it actually looked like. You can see slightly differences, right? Like the pivot goes opposite sides. But now we want to do this zoom back and pivot. Okay. This is surprisingly difficult. So first, let's get this slide here. It's actually easier than it seems. I feel like I keep accidentally killing my keynotes here. So all I'm going to do is duplicate this slide, which has this transition here, move it to the end, add a magic move here, maybe make it a little quicker. And Keynote actually handles all of it for us. So we'll talk through our agenda, all of our different items that we're going to talk about. When we get to this point, I will now click to the next slide, which you can see on the right. That's what it's going to be next. But this magic move animation allows it to handle the moving of the object by itself. So it's going to zoom out, and now we're ready to go to the next one. Oh, and I have to remember that this is set to automatic. Okay, great. Now, let's find our background, just like a background that we can use maybe with a chair. It doesn't have to be the exact same one. That'll work. Okay. Yeah, this will work. Okay. So let's just drag that into, let's make another slide first. Just in case. All right. So again, I know I've said this a lot, but what you see inside the lit area is what you're going to see on the screen. So anything on the outside isn't seen. So what I can do here is, you see me, the problem is when you zoom out, you can't actually move around the space, so you just have to do it from a distance. So I'm going to try to get that line in the floor pretty well in line. I'm going to have to make it taller, but remember I can remove the constraints on the height and width. So let's make this taller so it will actually reach the whole screen. Zoom in here, you can see I'm getting close. That's pretty close. I'll need to make it a little bit taller. That should work. Okay, so we have that here, but let's see what this looks like right now before we do anything else. So this is what this agenda slide looks like. Zoom back. Okay, great. We don't see it yet. Now we're going to take exactly where this one is. I'm going to go ahead and lock it here. And we're going to copy this chair to the next slide too. And now I'm going to select both of these and try, let's see where they are on the y-axis, -7. So I'm going to try to just slide these straight across. And we see here that now this image isn't going to be wide enough. Okay, that's fine. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back to slide 5, make this wider. Okay, we know if it's the same width as this one, then it should be fine. Adjust it there. All right, let's copy, delete this one, paste it again, select it all, slide it over. There we go. -7 is this position I was looking at. So that way it's a smooth line across. So let's look at what this looks like now. So we see this computer screen is now on the left side. This is now in our primary frame. So I'm going to go ahead and click next, and boom, we've moved over. Awesome. So now, as we saw in the last presentation, there was also something on this wall here, which was just this with some text on it. So I'm going to drop that here. I'm going to make it way smaller. Hang it on the wall. Now the thing I think we did in the other presentation was I would make 2 copies of this slide here, and remove the chair on one of them. And so I could actually hide images kind of behind it. Gives it more depth. We won't do that right now. Maybe we'll do that in a separate one. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it a little border. It automatically gives it a shadow. So it pops it off the wall just a little. I'm going to move it so it's not covering the chair. And inside here, see, I'm going to put a text box. And go ahead and write background. Should be able to center it in here perfectly. There we go. This isn't going to look exactly like the other Keynote, but it's going to be close. All right, a little different, but we'll get there. And so now we have this here. Unfortunately, because we have it on this slide and we're moving it from here, we need to add it here too. So let's get it over here in this corner. And Keynote should take care of this for us. All right, so let's watch it again. The slide over, and then it adjusts a little, but it's close enough. So now this is our primary slide. So I'm going to duplicate, and I'm going to select all this and move it to the center. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to group these two things together. So that way when I move them, they move as a single object and not as multiple entities. So let's group it here as well. All right, now let's duplicate and try again. So now it should, the text should scale. Let's just try it this way instead. It's going to look silly at the moment, but there we go. And now let's get it in here, center of the screen. This is the hard part when you start adding a bunch of pieces on the outside, is it tries to auto kind of click into place. All right, so we have that. That's in the middle too. All right, so let's give it a watch now. And now it'll zoom in for us and kind of be in the foreground. All right, we're making good progress here. One thing I'll add is kind of showing you our slide deck from our talk. I usually keep a slide. I think I removed it. It looks like I did. At the very end, that is for all my assets that I use throughout the presentation. Another Keynote presentation as well. And you can see here are all the different assets that we used in this presentation. So different images, Apple script, a piece of paper, a paw print, etc. Okay, I think that'll wrap up this first tutorial. And next time we'll talk about maybe some of the more in-depth pieces, such as this depth of field to this chair here, which you can see by this image here being behind the chair. We can add this piece where we zoom in, how we added actually Kim Jong-un, and then some of these parts, which is the arrows, formatting the images, and other things like that. So with that in mind, thanks everyone for hanging out, checking this out. I hope it was valuable. Let me know if it was, and we'll chat again soon. Thanks.